That somehow Democrats are weak on crime and Democratic presidents are weak on crime and Republicans are tough on crime. The truth is, every major crime bill since 1976, every minor crime bill has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden, on that bill.
Today we're going to be examining Terry v. Ohio coupled with the for-profit prison industry. We're also going to be looking at different presidents and what their impact was in increasing the incarceration nation. Let's get directly into the impact of what the left and the right has done to our country, to our people, and what the solution is to these bigger problems.
Last night, I tell you, to watch that thing on television, as I did, to see those monkeys from those African countries. Damn them, they're still uncomfortable wearing shoes.
Now, what you're looking at here, this is the prison industry right here. This is the prison chart right here. As you can see, now this stick is going to point up to Terry versus Ohio. This is Terry versus Ohio in 1968. From where you're sitting and where you're looking at, this may seem like a very small increase in the prison population from 1968 until 1982. It's not a small increase in the prison population. It's a gigantic, the prison increase is double. It's almost double, 90%, something like that. I don't know the exact statistic, but I know the statistics on the wall are accurate. So what you're looking at here is 1968, Terry v. Ohio. Now, there's going to be some steps in between, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into of how we've created an absolute prison state.
Today, the bickering stops. The era of excuses is over. From this day forward, let us put partisanship behind us. Law enforcement, community leaders, ordinary citizens. Let us roll up our sleeves and reduce crime in our country. We have the tools now. Let us get about the business of using them.
What happens right here, Terry v. Ohio, what it does is this says that the police can walk up and grab you. Now, it's based on the idea of officer safety, but once they grab you, in 1971, right here, Richard Nixon declares war on drugs. Now, the reason he declares war on drugs is in 1998, I believe, John Ehrlichman, this guy right here, he admits in a 1998 Harper Bazaar magazine in that Richard Nixon declared war on drugs to make sure that hippies and black people would be locked up because he couldn't get a handle on the gigantic civil rights era that had boomed before him in the 60s, and now in the 70s, we were deeply involved in a war in Vietnam. And so the reason why Richard Nixon criminalized drugs and created the war on drugs was John Ehrlichman said that the reason they did it was so that he could arrest hippies and black people. We know that. We know what was happening inside the administration of the presidency. The article can still be looked up. It's Harper Bazaar. Look it up. So if we know that, then why do we still have a war on drugs?
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. I have asked the Congress to provide the legislative authority and the funds to fuel this kind of an offensive. This will be a worldwide offensive, it will be government-wide, and it will be nationwide in terms of a new educational program. With regard to this offensive, it is necessary first to have a new organization. Dr. Jaffe, who will be one of the briefers here today, will be the man directly responsible. He will report directly to me.
That's what I just don't seem to understand. As I've done this timeline of history, I just can't wrap around my head. So now, here's what happens, of course. Terry v. Ohio passes, and police have the right to walk up and grab you. 1971, Richard Nixon declares war on drugs. So in 1971, police are just going to say, hey, you know what, I'm suspicious that you have a weapon on you. And they're just going to grab you, and if they find any drugs on you, the war on drugs has begun. So that's the policy of all police. You see the blue line going down right here? That's the policy of all police. So now the prison industry is going to grow by 100,000 people. We were at 350,000, 340,000 people in 1968. And then right here, we're at 400,000, 500,000, 600,000, 700,000. So now if you take a look, and remember, I just put sticks on the wall. Take a look at this sharp increase right here. Do you see that sharp increase? You can see it. I'll zoom in on the camera, but you can see a very sharp increase right here. This little 2-year gap is when Ronald Reagan takes office. He doubles down on the war on drugs and creates the DARE program for kids. DARE. Ronald Reagan single-handedly created the incarceration nation in our country by enhancing the war on drugs and then creating the for-profit prison industry. And so the reason why you see this gigantic jump here, right here, you can see it, 600, 700,000. Look how quickly it goes, 400,000, 500,000, 700,000. Now this is just the beginning of the real incarceration nation, because our current president, Joe Biden, will write the legislation that will really take us on a ride in a moment.
Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, they literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but I just don't understand. We know Richard Nixon declared war on drugs to lock up black people and hippies. It's been exposed. So we know the war on drugs is a farce. Why do we continue this? Why do we continue doing this? We've now understood through empirical evidence that if people want to do drugs, they will get drugs. People in Colorado Supermax prison can get drugs. The guards bring them in. We double up our prison industry here, primarily going after marijuana. Now in the 1980s, it's well documented that the CIA creates crack and gives it to Rick Ross.
The only thing that's gone up more than spending is crime. Our city streets are jungle paths after dark.
So the for-profit prison industry's kicked in, Terry v. Ohio is here, and now right through here, it's gonna come up, you see how it's escalating on an exponential level based on the for-profit prison industry writing the legislation for the different states, cities, counties, districts, boroughs. The for-profit prison industry, when they start going into legislative lobbying, they're now writing the legislation for our laws that what is arrestable, because they make money off human bodies being in the dungeon. And jail is no longer just a jail where they take your picture and you take off. Jail is now a dungeon.
But man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
So now we're going along exponentially because of the for-profit prison industry, but then what happens right here? What happens right here? Do you see it? It even increases more here. Why does it do this? It's going here, and then there's this almost like a bend right here. That's because of the Joe Biden 1994 crime bill. And what the Joe Biden 1994 crime bill does is this creates enhancements for having a gun. This creates extended prison sentences, and specifically, Joe Biden argues that people should have to do 100% of the prison time.
I like the idea they keep in jail longer. I'm the guy that wrote the bill requiring federal judges to keep people in jail 100% of the time for which they're sentenced, and in notable exceptions, only 85%. So I'm all for tougher enforcement. We have laws in the last several years where we don't allow judges discretion to sentence people. Flat time sentencing. You get caught, you go to jail. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. I'm the guy that said, rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it.
And when people are rehabilitated and come out and become a better person, he doesn't understand how that happens. Here's the kind of the wicked part about tying everything together, the conceptual analysis of the culture. So in 1968, we create the Police Can Grab You. Nixon declares war on drugs so you can grab people in 1971. But then the Knapp Commission comes out in 1974. And the Knapp Commission says it's lawlessness in police. This guy Serpico, he testifies, the police are the organized crime for the drug organizations. The police work hand in hand with every single drug organization, from the very petty street criminal all the way up to the kingpins. All of these things I'm saying are documented. You would have to read the Knapp Commission. It's available on my website for free for download. So now you understand. Now, when we pop up here, look at what's going on. We got Gerald Ford in office in 1974, 1975, and then Jimmy Carter comes in 19... And this prison industry is exploding underneath both Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. It's growing fast, right? So Jimmy Carter is a left, he's on the left, right? And Gerald Ford, he's a Republican. Which group of people are looking out for you and me? Is it the Democrats under Jimmy Carter where it really starts to grow? Or is it the Republicans where they watch it grow 100,000 people in his administration alone, growing by 20%? So then you have Reagan come in, and Reagan, of course, the war on drugs and enhances civil asset forfeiture and criminal asset forfeiture. And then you slide down here, look at this, and now Reagan introduces for-profit prisons right here.
The first reform I want to talk about today concerns that exclusionary rule. As you know, the Supreme Court recently recognized that it makes no sense to apply the exclusionary rule when a police officer believes in reasonably good faith that he is acting under a valid warrant, even if the warrant is defective for some reason. My proposal would codify the existing reasonable good faith exception and expand it to warrantless searches and seizures. It'll make a difference to those of you on the front line.
And now after that, you're going to see an explosion at the same rate from here to here, all the way going here. And then, so now we get to 1994 and the Mullen Commission comes out. And the Mullen Commission says the same thing about the Wickersham Commission and the same thing that the Knapp Commission says, but it also says that police have now created a blue wall of silence.